Good evening and welcome to tonight's Black Mental Health is Black Health. I'm your host, Bronwyn, Miss B, the Black Couch Therapist. And as always, I have an amazing and exciting guest that I can't wait for you to hear about. But we always start with some deep cleansing breaths. It may have been a long day, it may have been a good day, but these breaths will allow you to just decompress and have that woosah moment. So if you've never been here before, here's how it works. I'm going to count it to four very slowly. I'll say breathe in, and then I'll say out, and I'll count to four very slowly again. We're going to take three cleansing breaths. Let's get started. Breathe in, two, three, four, out, two, three, four. In, two, three, four, out, two, three, four. One more. In, two, three, four, out, two, three, four. Just that time to have that woosah moment and manage life. How was that deep breathing for you, Troy?
Man, when you said woosah moment, I went right back to Martin. I almost grabbed my ears for just a moment. So it took me back.
Well, good. Awesome. Awesome. Well, as always, I like to have my guests introduce yourself and tell us something cool about you.
One, thank you for this opportunity, Ms. B, to be on your show, to talk about mental health, right? To be able to talk about faith at the intersections. But my name is Troy James. I am your favorite Harvard certified executive leadership coach. I have more than 20 years of senior leadership experience in enterprise strategy with Starbucks, where I was a senior global and inclusion and belonging business consultant with them, where I was responsible for meeting with leaders that covered responsible for a third of the country, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of responsibility there. I'm also an author of Faith at the Intersections, 12 Pathways for Navigating Life with Courage, Clarity, and Christ, and CEO and founder of Valora. And Valora is is a consulting platform where we operate at the intersection of identity and transition. So I work with individuals, executive teams, mission-driven institutions, all that are navigating disruption. There's a lot of disruption right now, visible responsibility, and let's face it, man, cultural strain, right? Whether it's business culture or personal culture, that type of strain, and all within and beyond the formal power structures, right, that we're trying to live our lives within. So that's me. And I guess one interesting fact is I opened a company and wrote a book all in 6 months at the same time after transitioning from my role at Starbucks for 20 years. So went into very short retirement, transitioned to an author and a coach and a founder and a CEO. And here we are.
That is awesome. That is awesome. You do so much. I think I want to focus on the book and Valora and exactly how they do that. You know, I often say that our mental, physical, and spiritual health are intertwined. And when I just hear the title of your book, it speaks to that same thought. So could you tell us a little about the book, and do you agree that our mental, physical, and spiritual health are intertwined?
It is absolutely intertwined. And this book is about my life's journey of trying to manage and navigate my faith, my identity versus performance, as I was doing everything I could to climb the corporate ladder and still live my full purpose. Mm-hmm. Right. So living at the book, Faith at the Intersections, right? And what living at the intersections means. It's the place where our faith, our responsibility, and our real life decisions meet. Right. Most people struggle with belief as much as they struggle with applying their faith when something intersects their life, right? Or life gets really complicated. As Jay-Z said, it was all good just a week ago. Mm-hmm. Well, we all had those just a week ago moments where everything is going fine and then pow. Maybe you got a promotion and the promotion wasn't what you thought. Maybe you lost a loved one. Maybe your kids started tripping and you didn't expect it, but life was going good. And it's how do we slow down to recognize that things are happening for us and not happening to us.
Mm.
And it took a lifetime for me to get, it feels like, to get to that, to get to that mind frame, because each time this happened, I learned something new. So the intersections for those moments when you make those difficult decisions, and we have to decide whether we're going to move forward with fear or with faith.
Give us an example of that intersection. Can you give us a practical example, real life example of that intersection and how to overcome it, how to manage it?
Yeah. So a real life example for me would be just getting promoted to a role. I'm living out my purpose. And this wonderful opportunity comes for me to do this community work. So I founded All In for Starbucks. So All In was a community event that eventually, over 3.5, 4 years, touched 145,000 people across 83 cities nationwide. And it started as a grassroots event in June of 2020, right? Mm-hmm. Where everybody had just gotten sick and tired. And we had a leader that gave us agency, said, hey, why don't we go out and do something? Don't sit back, do something. I had a vision of how we can meet with the community, right? How we can give away backpacks, how we can serve, how we can engage, right? Because engagement is so important when there's trauma taking place, and how can we give and help people get to their purpose? Well, I'm doing all these things and I'm noticing pushback. I'm like, well, why am I getting this pushback? Right? I'm doing the right thing. I'm doing it for the company, right? I'm making a name for the brand. I'm kind of doing it for myself, but that wasn't the plan.
Mm-hmm.
And that began the series of personal intersections that I would go through over my career, where I would question who I was. I'd question my identity. I'd question my worth while doing good things, right? I've hit a lot of home runs, but even while hitting home runs, I was still struggling getting the base. Still struggling getting the base. Like, why? What is it? And each time I'd hit those struggles, it was God slowing me down to have a conversation with me. Right, helping me find that insecurity that maybe I didn't solve, or maybe I need to meet little Troy somewhere, right, where I stuck him in a corner, you know. And what I realized is that things don't remain buried; they dig themselves up at those intersections in your life.
And it's so true. And we find ourselves at intersections when we least expect it. Like you say, things are going great. We're doing all this, and why am I here? Why am I in this place? So you talk about these 12 pathways. What are they?
So there are a number of pathways, right, that we have. One of my favorite pathways, and it is called waiting on green, right? And each pathway is a chapter, and each pathway is a story of an intersection in my life where I've gone through something. And waiting on green, it's based on Psalm 27:14, which reminds us to wait for the Lord and take heart, right? So many people today feel pressure to move quickly, right? To make all these decisions, right? To change directions or pursue opportunities immediately. I'm about to lose my job, so I'm gonna look for another job, right? Or whatever it could be, right? But what faith teaches us is that not every open road is a green light from God, right? So waiting on green is about learning to trust God's timing. Right. It reminds us that waiting, it's not passive. It is active trust. You know, you can prepare yourself. You can do all those things. Right. But it's preparing your heart and strengthening your faith and believing that God's not yet can be just as meaningful as his go. And some of the most important work God does in our lives, in my opinion, it happens while we're waiting at the line, you know, learning patience, learning clarity and obedience before the light turns green. And the other 11 chapters in the book, or 11 pathways in the book, that they speak to just the different intersections that you may come to.
You know, you talk about that. I often say, for me, the most difficult verse in the Bible is "Be still and know that I am God." You know, it's an A and a B part. The be still, and then the know that I'm God. I got the B part. I am good with that. I can know that God is God. Be still. Oh my gosh, that, and like you say, when you're at that, especially when you're at that intersection, and the intersection is not a good place, and you have to stop and be still. There is so much value that we get from being still, and I've learned that value. I'm not going to say it's always easy, but yes, there is so much value in being able to stop. That's why we always open the show with breathing. Stop. Even that little moment of stop, something we should do every day.
Every day, every day. Part of what I do, and it came from just the learnings that I got in the book, right? So the book started off as you could say, spiritual formation that turned into literal business architecture along the way. I mean, you can't spend 20 years in corporate America, not learn some things, right, and not see some things that you can actually apply, right? So when I say I'm a leadership formation architect, right, for high performing leaders who are successful, and seeing a lot of success outside, but you might be feeling misaligned, and you may be feeling burnout, right? So we created this method called the Pathfinder method, and through that, I help high performing individuals. I help leaders such as yourself. I just help folks that are going through it, right? Because you're built a certain way. You're built to achieve, right? You're built to do those things. And I help them separate identity from performance, right? So when we separate identity from performance, you can then begin to lead with clarity under pressure, right? Clarity under pressure. And we're under a lot of pressure right now. And most high performing leaders, we're all trained to measure our value by our outcomes. Right? You're trained to do it. Think about if you made A's in school as a kid, right? If you were a star on the team, whatever it could be, right? Your value becomes equated to those outcomes. And what happens is under pressure, identity begins to fuse with performance. And when identity fuses with performance, right? Results fluctuate, your stability fluctuates. So we try to get to a place of internal alignment, right? And separate who you are from what you produce. So that way, leaders can stay stable, moms can stay stable, dad can stay stable, right? Because everybody's the CEO of their life. You can stay stable under pressure instead of becoming reactive to results, right? And our Pathfinder method, it translates a spiritual formation and psychological insight into an organizationally executable architecture. And this results in leaders being grounded, and not just outcome driven. So that's all the work that came from the book, and being in those spaces and having an opportunity to want to serve and live my purpose, but also being put in uncomfortable situations, right? Of having to learn on the fly and having to sit back and figure out, the whys behind people react a certain way. The why did I react a certain way, and then figure out a way to apply these learnings to a methodology that can help people moving forward.
I wanted to comment, you were talking about how our identity gets so intertwined with what we do for a living. And like you said, that goes up and down. One day you have a great performance evaluation, and next day you might not. And when we so tie that to who we are, it can impact us mentally, spiritually, and even physically, because the physical part comes in. If I begin to not feel good about me, that overall can impact my physical health. So it is so important that we're able to separate that out. I hear people comment, yeah, you're in Texas, because people will ask you, what do you do? Say in other places, they don't ask you upon meeting you, what do you do, for a living? Not who are you, but what do you do? And we do put a lot of focus on what do you do. And that's probably not the best measure of who I am as a person.
Yeah, it may not be, but let's face it, we live in the two systems, right? You have this exterior system, right, of business, of performance, of a literal system of how things work. And that's okay. But then you have the identity system, right? That's our internal system of our domain, our energy, our roles, our frequency, right? And who we are. And the challenge is how do we remain aligned to our own identity when everything has been based on your performance. So for instance, Brown, as a wife or mom, as a daughter, each one of those is a role that you play, right? And often, as the world starts to turn faster, as you begin having more pressure, we look to satisfy whoever it is that is asking us to play the role. We just want to play our part as best we can, so that person is happy, right? If I'm a mom, I want my kid happy with me. If I'm a spouse, I want my spouse happy. If I'm an employee, I want, and that tends to pull us from maybe who we were created to be. As we start giving yeses, and maybe yeses aren't the thing that our core is asking us to give. Right?
Yes. Yeah. We give yeses when we need to give nos, but we also give yeses because we don't even know that we don't. It's we're caught in the role, and we don't even know that. No, that's not me. Like you said, we get caught in the role. You talked about the role of a mother, and I want my children to be X, Y, Z. So I'm so caught up in that. Maybe I lose me, and maybe I even lose sight of what's best for them because it's the role. It is the expectations, and not understanding that.
Yeah, and the role is only one aspect of your life, but you're so caught up in it because you play that role literally until you take your last breath. So how do you find your center, right? How do you remember who you were created to be? And that's the work that we do at Valora, and that's the work that we do through the Pathfinder method. Is can we slow down and let us help you remember, right? Where you started. Did you have dreams? When's the last time that you thought about the dreams that you had as a kid? Can you articulate your skills? And I'm talking about your gifts, right? You go to church and you fill out that thing. Oh, these are my gifts. Well, that's not gonna get you a job, right? And I'm saying that with all the Christian heart I got. But if you think about your gifts and your skills, and you take something like Clifton Strengths or something, and you recognize, hey, these are the 4 or 5 things that I excel at, and I see them in my role, but I've never been able to articulate them. Can we help you articulate those? And then can we help you find your purpose, right? Can you speak to what your purpose in life is? And if you think about it from a spiritual perspective, just strictly spiritual perspective, right? We are sent here for God's purpose, and God's purpose is always about other people. And often if we look back, we find our joy doing what? And how we served other people. It's the thing that we would generally do for free. I wouldn't always advise it all the time. Right? You got bills to pay. But if you can find your purpose, then generally you can work through whatever the noise is that's going on around
you. You talked about Valora, which is your company. We talked about the book. Someone who in 6 months, I'm going to write a book and I'm going to retire, write a book in 6 months and find out I'm not really retired. I just have a new life. So tell us about the Valora movement.
Oh man, so thank you. So Valora means stands for aura, and courage, right? And aura and courage, that's really the flow that it takes to make things happen, right? So as I was reading up on names, right, and as I was trying to figure out what is this company, what is the thing that we really need people to take a hold of, my purpose and my goal in life is to give people hope and empower them to have agency. So what are the things that we need in the middle of that, right? What is different than what other people do, and the work that we do differently, right, is the spiritual translation, the spiritual formation work, right? The spiritual formation work that then ladders up into tangible operational techniques that you can bring forward either within your business or for whatever you have left in life, whatever it is that you're called to do in life. And that's what we're doing in the Valora movement. It's really an identity movement. It's created for a time like this where the country's having an identity crisis, literally an identity crisis. The country's having it. People are having it. Cultures are having it. And our work is to help you remember your identity, your original blueprint. And that's what we do at Valora.
So, and you do this with executives, regular everyday Joe Blow people, or
That's right.
who benefits from the Valora movement? And what?
So everyone can benefit from the Valora movement. What I've been told more often than not is, and I laugh at it because nobody ever puts Troy in a box or a corner. I'm not going there. Is that you have to find a sector, right? I mean, what do you mean I have to find a sector to work in, right? Now, I'm not here to fix the system. I'm here to help people that are impacted by the system, right? So whether you are an executive leading a company of 10,000 people and you need coaching to find alignment because you're struggling because your arms are wrapped around everything, right? You feel like you're hitting home runs, but you're going home and you're just so burnt out and you're feeling disheartened. That's what we do. Or maybe it's your team. Maybe there's an opportunity for us to sit with you and your team and help the team recognize just from a core principle, right? That individual alignment is an input. Team coherence is the output, right? And you don't build an aligned team by working on the team. You build it by working on the people inside of it and then creating shared structures for those aligned individuals to operate within it together. That's the piece that's missing, and that's what we do. So it could be anyone from an executive leader, any high performing individual, or anybody that's just feeling burned out. If you have worked a lifetime and you find yourself been in a job for 20, 25 years, and now you're on the outside looking in, and you're trying to figure out, maybe I need to take another class. Well, I'll challenge you. Let's not take another class. Let's sit down and let's learn about who you are, right? Let's do some internal formation work. You don't need another class. You need a class on who you are and remembering who you were created to be. So now you're equipped on a new foundation. So regardless of what changes on the outside, what the economy does, right? You have a different vision and an understanding of who you are and how you're empowered to move forward in this new economy.
You know, you said something really powerful to me is that, you know, when first we're talking about the team leader, work on the people on the team, not the team. And I think that we have to remember as the leader working on the individual, but also what I hear is for the individual, I need to work on me. Not just my role as the employee, but the totality of who I am. And that's what I hear.
Absolutely, because how can you show up as your best self by neglecting yourself? It's not going to happen. And in this space of what's happened in business, which is quite interesting, right? And I think it's happened because of how the leader of our country manages things. It's moved from building a strategy to managing tactically, right? So every leader's taught to build a strategy, right? Well, this will be 5 years. When's the last time you heard someone build a 5-year strategy? We're just trying to make it from quarter to quarter. So now they're working on tactics, and there's not as much time to plan on how to develop this person, or maybe even how to spend time on themselves. And I'm contending that now is the perfect time for us to slow down.
Yes.
Slow down and recognize what we have to do differently to manage this new economy.
You know, one of the things I see in my business, and we only have about 4 or 5 minutes left, but, you know, when you think about the new economy, I think about people who've been laid off. And how do you find yourself? How do you help people find yourself? You know, in 2025, we had so many African-American women being laid off. And that, you know, we were talking about finding yourself in this new, so you're lost, especially if I've been working somewhere 10, 15, 20 years and it's gone. And we've already said how a lot of what you do is part of your identity. How do you help that particular population find themselves?
Well, that is the population that I think that we're here for, right? Because you've done everything right. And to no fault of your own, you find yourself in this situation where you're being forced to slow down. You're at an intersection. Say the book came first, the formation came second. You're at this intersection, And all the signals are different than what you've ever read before.
Mm-hmm.
You're in a different place. The energy is different, right? You're finding all this time on your hands. You're wondering if you are enough, right? And this is the time that you should slow down. You should remember who you were before you got the job, right? You should figure out, what is my purpose in life? Because before, your purpose has strictly been to take care of your family. I got to make this money. I have to do what my parents said that I should do, right? Because that's how the system worked before. Well, now that you have this time, now that you have all this time, this is the perfect opportunity to sit back, go to Valora, go to Valora.com and take a couple of the tests and recognize maybe a little bit where you're off, where you're off center, right? And do some of the inside work. And what we can do is we can help you find out who you are, who you were created to be, and prepare you for what's next.
What age range would you say you work with Valora?
It's any age range, but I think the perfect age range, just because I've experienced what everyone has gone through, right? I went 20-something years in a role, and then all of a sudden I'm not in a role anymore. I'm trying to figure out what's next,
right? And
it took the slowing down. But I would say if you're in this space between 45 to retirement, whatever retirement should be,
right?
You've lived some life, you've had some things go on with you, right? You know, some things you're happy with, some things you're not, but you're a veteran in life, but this is new. I'm here to help you. I'm here to help you retune. It's not about rebuilding. It's just about remembering. Everything that you need is already inside of you.
Yes.
It's ready to be unleashed. And that's the work we do.
And that is a very important thing to remember, that everything we need is inside of us.
Every single thing.
We have the power of our physical, mental, and spiritual healing. We have to be willing to adjust, be willing to understand that it may take some transformation, and realize we can't do it alone.
You're absolutely right, Bronwyn. And in the past, we've done it by taking other courses, right? And I'm not saying don't take the course that you always wanted to take. I went to Harvard and I took the courses I always wanted to take, right? I think that's fine. But I think first we have to recognize, what is our purpose in life? And maybe, just maybe, this is the season that God is planning for you, not for someone else.
How can people contact you? What is your website? Let us know, and I will drop it in the chat as well. It should be there. So what is your website?
Yeah, you can reach us at valoraplatform.com. That's valoraplatform.com. You can find it on Facebook. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on LinkedIn. You can find me on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram at Troy James. But the website is valoraplatform.com. You can send an email to info@valoraplatform.com. You can ping me, Troy James, on LinkedIn. You can find the book at Amazon, Faith at the Intersections, 12 Pathways for Navigating Life with Courage, Clarity, and Christ. And you can also purchase the book at the website, but it is at valoraplatform.com. And if you get an opportunity, sign in, take the pathway assessment, find out if your frequencies are aligned, find out if your domains are aligned, find out if your energy is aligned. And then let's talk about how we can help you return to the person that you were created to be.
Thank you so much. You've given us a lot. And as I said, your website and the name of the company will be in the chat. I mean, not in the chat, but, in the comments rather, and people can see it if you're on Facebook. But I will spell it also. It's V as in Victor, ELORA, Valora. So I want to make sure they get it because it's so much valuable information. Do you have one final comment? We're out of time, but do you have one final comment?
Yeah. A healthy culture it's formed. It's not declared. Right. And if we hope to see a better tomorrow for our kids, then we have to start with the work inside of us.
Mm-hmm.
When we get the work done inside of us, then we'll see that we've changed the world to make it just a little bit better.
Thank you. I
Mhm.
always end with a call to action, something I ask you to do as a result of whatever we talked about on the show. And my call to action is this: if you're at an intersection or not, think about what you need to do to better know who you are, better serve yourself. It is not selfish. As you better serve yourself, you better serve those around you. We all can grow, be willing to grow, and be willing to make a difference. And my last call to action is always vote, vote, vote. Be an educated voter. Don't just go vote to say you voted. Be an educated voter. I'm Miss B, the Black Couch Therapist, and I'm here to help you become a better you. And I will see you next week.